Coming up, in this week's political segment, we talk about border control with ICT political correspondent Pauly Denetclaw and contributor John Tahsuda. Plus, it is an important moment in Native American history, the occupation of Alcatraz Island. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. We start today in Utah, where Indigenous education leaders have expressed concern over the gray area in a bill currently sitting on the desk of Governor Spencer Cox. HB 261 was introduced by two Republican state lawmakers earlier this month to prohibit scholarships based on race or gender. That comes as Utah universities have announced tuition waivers and scholarships for any student enrolled in the state's 8 federally recognized tribes. So could aid for those Native students be in jeopardy? The bill's authors told the Salt Lake Tribune they weren't sure and that the legislation could have that unintended consequence. Forrest Kutch, a Ute citizen and former education director of his tribe, said he was disgusted by the legislation. Governor Cox has previously expressed his support for the bill. Well, Harvard University says it is funding the travel costs of returning tribal artifacts and funerary belongings. A 2022 report revealed that Harvard holds thousands of Native American artifacts. Now, tribal representatives needing to go to the Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology to repatriate their cultural items will have their travel expenses covered. The university promised to accelerate the repatriation process. That's as Native American advocates have heavily criticized delays in the process. According to Peabody Museum Director Jane Pickering, the fund will speed up repatriations required by NAGPRA legislation and reduce financial barriers. In Rhode Island, a federal lawsuit has been filed over an alleged refusing to accommodate the religious practices of an Indigenous inmate. The American Civil Liberties Union is suing the Department of Corrections after it allegedly denied requests for an Apache inmate to wear a religious headband. According to the ACLU, the prison's computer system did not include his Native American religious designation, leaving the defendant no choice but to identify as pagan and Wiccan. The right to free exercise of religion is protected by federal law. The ACLU is demanding the DOC revise its policies to allow inmates who are not in the prison's computer system to practice their beliefs freely. We turn now to Pennsylvania for an update on the story of a school mascot causing controversy. Last week, we told you about the Southern York County School District, which voted to bring back the Susquehannock High School logo portraying a Native American fighter. A previous board had retired the image in 2021. Opponents say the fight is not over. They started a petition drive and are promoting a bill in the state legislature to fund mascot changes.
This isn't over till it's over. You don't give up when things go backwards. We have to move forward. We have to, progress. And this school board wants to move things backward too. If we left it up to them, we'd be back in the 1950s, with segregation and, awful things for minorities.
In California, conservation groups are taking aim at the Department of Water Resources after the approval of a major water project. A lawsuit filed by the Shingle Spring Band of Miwok Indians and the California Indian Environmental Alliance, along with other parties, claims the department violated the California Environmental Quality Act by approving the Delta Conveyance Project. The project moves water to homes, farms, and businesses throughout the state. The suit claims the diversions from the Sacramento River Delta area will cause harm to the region's tribes and threaten wildlife, including endangered species of smelt and salmon. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. We turn now to this week's political segment to talk about President Joe Biden's new tone on hot topic issues like the southern border. Here to talk more about this is ICT political correspondent Pauly Denetclaw and regular contributor John Tahsuda, who is a principal with Navigators Global.
Welcome back to the newscast, John.
Thank you.
So let's start with border security. President Joe Biden ran his last campaign on a pathway to citizenship, but just recently struck a very different tone, saying that he would shut the border down in order to fix some of the issues that are happening. Can you talk a little bit about this narrative shift and also how the presidential election has really brought this issue to the forefront?
Certainly. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Presidential politics. This is a hot potato political subject, right? And it has been for a number of years. But unfortunately, we have some very sharply divided views amongst many people in the country, between political parties, between different parts of the country. Obviously, border states feel like they have a much more at stake in this debate, et cetera. So, getting any kind of consensus is very difficult. And unfortunately, sort of in line with politics and how politicians work, when things are difficult, they shy away from them. So, in the last presidential election, it was a hot button issue as well. And, the candidates talked about it from their own perspectives, including now President Biden. Now he's President Biden, and it seems like it hasn't been that pressing of an issue until now. We're back in a presidential campaign year, and all of a sudden it's a hot button topic again. And one of those things that's unfortunate that timing wise. So the first 2 years of his presidency, he had a Congress that was controlled by the same political party that he is. And often those are the opportunities you get as a president to really pursue some of the harder things, that you can't get if there's a divided Congress, what we call divided government, when the Congress is one hand and the White House is in the other hands. And so he had that opportunity for 2 years and really didn't take advantage of it from my perspective. And so, 2 years ago, or a little over, I guess, a year and a half ago, we had an election. The House changed hands, and the Senate remained very close. So it made it probably very challenging to reach some type of a consensus now that you have different political parties in control, and that's unfortunate. And again, it becomes a hot button topic during a presidential campaign. And unfortunately, given how these things work, I suspect there is very little chance that there will be any type of real change, amendments to our immigration process, real change to the border situation until after this election is done, because they're going to use it as a campaign topic, unfortunately.
And John, do you think that this new narrative shift will bring in more moderate voters to Joe Biden's campaign?
I would suspect that the great majority of voters, whether they're moderate Republican, moderate Democrat, et cetera, have likely set on who their candidate is going to be, that they're going to vote for. Obviously, we have a primary on the Republican side that is still ongoing, but it seems, pretty likely that former President Trump will be the candidate. And so you almost already are in the full presidential general election campaign at this point. So I think that President Biden's actions really reflect an attempt to keep moderate Democrat voters from leaving his base over this issue. And if it wasn't such a hot button issue, I think he would have less concern. But if you look across surveys of voters around the country, Even among Democrats, it's a very much at the top of the ticket of their concerns for national issues. And so I think, as much as anything, this change in tone by him reflects some concern that those voters may vote on that issue, and on that issue they would probably leave him. And the election will probably be very close, and so both candidates, both parties, can't really afford to lose any voters, whether they go and vote for the other candidate or just stay home. The election will be so tight. They are doing everything they can to make sure that their supporters turn out and vote. So if they were to just say, he's not going to deal with this issue, I'm not going to vote for former President Trump, but I'm just not going to vote at all because he's not going to, address the issue I'm concerned about. That's a grave concern to the Biden campaign.
Mm-hmm. And moving from the election to the Middle East, 3 U.S. soldiers were killed in an attack in Jordan by Iran-backed militants. And given Biden's record, how do you think his administration is going to respond to this attack?
Well, we can hope that they respond strongly. I think that the actions in the Middle East have consequences, of course, broadly, but to a certain degree, I think you cannot put up with these tests that are put to you by these groups. And we have a long history in Indian country, of warriors. Many men and women have enlisted and served the highest percentage service of any racial group in the United States. And so we take these issues very proudly. And we're also very concerned about our servicemen. So I hope that that the action that is taken by this administration is firm and strong and really reflects the need to protect our servicemen overseas. I would say, given the history of the Biden administration on these international security issues, I'm a little concerned. If we go all the way back to Afghanistan, doesn't seem like there is a clear direction all the time from them, which you need in these situations. But I'm hopeful that this situation, which seems pretty clear cut, that they will, again, have a firm and strong response.
And as you said, Native Americans do serve at the highest rate. And as we go into our next question, could the U.S. go back to war in the Middle East with this latest attack?
Well, I suspect that they will do everything they can. And I think that, this will carry forward. I suspect that, if former President candidate Trump were to get reelected, he has grave concerns he's expressed repeatedly during his presidency and after about unnecessary involvement in foreign wars. So I'm not sure. He was obviously a very strong supporter of Israel, just as President Biden has been. But it's unclear to me that he would be willing to put the United States into a war. And we know that these wars in the Middle East, have all kinds of issues that they raise. That's why they've been very difficult to achieve some type of, peace, continuing peace there. So, an actual war is probably going to be something that any U.S. administration will try to avoid. But as other nations do over in the Middle East, they will probably try to find surrogates to engage in some type of action for them.
Well, John, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining the newscast. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Always fun.
Visiting with family and relatives will help us from feeling lonely or socially isolated. COVID-19 changed everything, like our ancestors who survived war, famine, and epidemics. Our elders have to make sacrifices too. The more we are socially connected with our family and community, the less health problems we will have and the longer we will live. We need to stay active to keep our spirits alive. Remember, you are not alone. Connected together, we will stand strong. For more information on elder isolation or caregiver resources, go to connectedindigenousElders.org.
Educators will soon have a new tool to teach a pivotal moment in Native American history. Choctaw filmmaker Colleen Thurston produced a 13-minute documentary short for Retro Report on the occupation of Alcatraz Island in California. ICT's Shirley Sneve has more for us.
I was really excited to look at the Alcatraz movie. Tell us about it.
I've been working with Retro Report, an independent news organization. They do some really cool work. What they do is they work with educators who inform them what holes are missing in school curriculum, what students are not learning about. And what teachers, K through 12 teachers, have been saying over and over again is there is a significant lack of American Indian content in K through 12 curriculum, which a lot of us already know that, right? So they contracted me to make a piece about activism. And what we were really interested in is a female perspective. How does Alcatraz, how do these occupations fit into these ideas of matriarchal societies? And so that's what led us to Lenata Warjack, who was one of the original occupiers and was one of the leaders of the occupation of Alcatraz. So we started with Lenata and went from there with this story.
Was there anything that surprised you that she told you? I mean, as far as the history was concerned.
She was a student the whole time that she was, the whole however long 19 months that the occupation went on. So she was taking ferries, she was hitching rides with fishermen to go back to Berkeley to turn in papers. So she'd go to the island, and she said, we didn't use this in the final cut, but she said it was so quiet, it was so easy to write there. And so not only was she finishing her studies and continuing her time as a full-time student and a mother, but was occupying this former federal prison, and writing quite a bit of policy and proposals on the island for an American Indian Center, for a university to be implemented on the island.
On the official tour, the American Indian occupation of Alcatraz is like this big. It's just this big. And it's just like something for us as Native people that was just so game-changing. It's just like a footnote in history to the people that were on the Alcatraz Island. It hurt.
Yeah. I mean, you asked what was surprising, and I hadn't been to Alcatraz before, and you get off the boat and there's this huge painted sign, you are on Indian land. And so for me, I thought that the island was going to really showcase that history because it's right there, front and center. That's the first thing you see. But like you said, it's not. It really is kind of a footnote. There is an exhibit that is closed off. We were able to visit because we were with Lenata. We had a camera crew, but it's closed off to the public. It was open for the 50th anniversary of the occupation, and now it's full of bird feathers. There's a ton of birds on the island, and it was really sad. I was surprised that there wasn't more visibility throughout the island because, like you said, the occupation is a pivotal moment in history for many reasons. I mean, it wasn't just about treaty rights and land back. It's become so much more. It's become this moment of visibility when Native people were portrayed empathetically in the media, and and was a game changer in terms of policy. So for that to be this incredibly impactful time and moment, that was right in the middle of all the civil rights movements as well, to not see that represented felt like a really missed opportunity.
How can people watch this documentary?
It will be online for free, to stream for anyone. And again, it is for anyone, but it can be used in the classroom. And the way that we produced it is accessible, right? Like language that younger people can understand. Maybe not children, but juveniles, people in high school can, and maybe middle school, can definitely understand and absorb it.
And it's a good length for the classroom too.
There's so many wonderful feature-length documentaries, as you well know, that deal with our history, Native culture. But sometimes that's hard to fit into an hour-long class. Whereas, something that's 10, 15 minutes, it gives you time to not only watch it, but then discuss it.
I'm glad you're able to tell this story through the documentary. Thank you for joining us, Colleen Thurston.
Thank you so much, Shirley. It's really my pleasure. Thank you.
The federal prison at Alcatraz had been abandoned since 1963. So the occupiers invoked the Treaty of Fort Laramie, signed in 1868 between the United States and the Lakota Nation, claiming that it allowed them to seize federal land that was no longer being used.
It was enough for the students to see that a treaty was being broken. So it was just enough to get us all ready to take Alcatraz.
This is our land, all of it. This is a starting place for all American Indians to rally around.
On the island, Warjack was a key strategist and one of the female voices in the leadership. Richard Oakes, a Mohawk activist and San Francisco State University student, became the face of the occupation in the media.
We wish to be fair and honorable in our dealings with the Caucasian inhabitants of this land, and hereby offer the following treaty. We will purchase said Alcatraz Island for $24 in glass beads and red cloth, a precedent set by the white man's purchase of a similar island about 300 years ago. We know that $24 in trade goods for these 16 acres is more than was paid when Manhattan Island was sold, but we know that land values have risen over the years.
We appointed our governing leadership. We actually had an election, and from there we established who was going to cook the food, who was going to bring the food over, who was going to be on security, who was going to help with the children, who was going to teach the children.
The Indians seem to be picking up a lot of support. They have received several $1,000s in cash and foodstuffs.
Television news coverage spread the story of the occupation around the world. It drew attention to the occupiers' demands to end federal policies like forced relocation and the termination of tribal rights.
We will become an international outlet worldwide for authentic Indian art. And this will establish our base income to run the island and our university.
Warjack wanted to set up a Native American Studies Center on Alcatraz to teach more accurate American history. She had successfully pressured Berkeley to establish the first Native American Studies curriculum a few months earlier.
It was all colonized studies. They don't want to be confronted with the fact that this country was based on genocide of our people. So we wanted to initiate programs to talk about our truths and our histories.
Plans for the future were being laid. But then, in January 1970,
Tragedy has come to Richard Oakes, the leader of a group of Indians now squatting on the abandoned prison grounds of Alcatraz. His 12-year-old daughter Yvonne died today of injuries suffered 5 days ago in a 3-story fall while playing among the prison buildings.
Richard didn't want to stay out there. It's really hard to lose a child. And so he went back, and then we just kept working, just move forward, keep going.
Soon, media coverage turned negative. Negotiations with the federal government broke down, power was cut off to Alcatraz, and living conditions deteriorated.
What is the situation now on the island?
Well, we have a considerable cache of canned sea rations, but then we don't have any fresh fruits, vegetables, or meat or milk. We don't know how long we'll be able to hold out food and water-wise, but we're going to hold out there as long as it takes to maintain our occupation.
Menogijiga Nungam. Menogijiga Nungam. It is a good day today. Menogijiga Nungam. The word minnow is talking about something that is good, nice, or well. Gijigud is a word for day. And then Nungam means today. So we put all three together, we have Menogijiga Nungam. It is a good day today.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.